That's level one concern. The much bigger concern is that Russia may be saying we're just ready to end this war, and they've actually said it's as such. And we'll see whether people believe them or not. But I want to show you kind of what is possible here and what they may be looking at. And that, oh, there we go. And that is in some of the northern areas. I've talked to you a little bit about this in the past, but just so you see, this is the Kursk area. This is where lots of fighting is going on, and certainly lots of continued losses by the Ukraine side in the Kupiansk area up around here, in the Toretsk area, of course, the Pokrovsk is the big one. That's where they're moving the furthest, but even down in the Vuhledar area, and lots of operations and action down here in the very south that hasn't gotten a lot of notice yet, but the Russian side is doing lots of things that make it look like they may be getting ready to do something big down here where they haven't in quite a long time. They actually have probably more troops down here than anywhere else on the border here, and they haven't hardly even made any moves, which of course would put Zaporizhia and possibly even Odessa in the crosshairs. So that's a risk that they have to have. But up here, I think the biggest vulnerability is going to be Kiev, because there has been lots of reports, and you can see some of it even here, where there are unknown number of Russian units in the north here. Now, this is Belarus, but there are also Russian units, many around here. There certainly in many of the Smolensk, the Bryansk, and in the Kursk Oblast, lots of troops being there. The exact numbers are unknown, but according to some reports by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense and Intelligence Services earlier this summer, somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 troops of Russian troops are in this area. Not those in combat, not those that are fighting here, but that are out of combat and potentially used for others. Now, as I look at the situation here, I'm going to cover this in more detail probably in a week or so, but to kind of give you a preview and why this should be so alarming for both the Ukraine and the U.S. side, is that in the event that Russia chose to have what they call a big arrow movement, where they had large number of the troops, and then they went back after Kiev again. Now, on the one hand, a lot of people would say, well, they tried to take Kiev before and they failed. Well, they didn't really try to take it. They tried a demonstration because they didn't have, I think the total number of troops they had was 50, 60,000 total that they moved into around the Kiev area when they first went down here. And I think based on what they did and the number of troops they had, that the primary purpose was to scare Zelensky into leaving, to abandoning it, and seeking negotiated settlement. But and that's why I say that it was a big strategic error on the Russians' part at the beginning, because if they only had a plan A, and if that was with Zelensky leaving, but if Zelensky stayed and fought, then they were not equipped and outfitted for a plan B, which was now you have to fight for the place, and they couldn't do it. They didn't have enough troops. They didn't have anywhere near enough troops. I think Kiev is maybe a couple million, so it's a huge city, and you certainly aren't going to take that with 40,000 people. Well, now then, you can see a lot of the number of troop designations. So there are some Ukrainian troops that are defending here. But if Russia comes in with a couple 200,000 troops into this area, now they will have a shot at here. And here's the big problem. Zooming back out again here. If Ukraine has to defend its capital, whatever the number of troops is here, they don't have enough, not even near enough for a concerted like 200,000 troop assault onto the capital city. They would have to withdraw troops from here and really all along the front here. But as I just told you, Russians have, again, according to the Ukraine sources, somewhere around 600,000 troops along this line here. Now, if you suddenly take out tens of thousands of these troops to go back and defend the capital, what do you think is going to happen to the forced dispositions here? Of course, this would have a serious problem of collapsing. This would go away, and they would have to abandon that right away. They would have to stop anything and immediately rush all these troops back to the capital. So even if you want to say, well, Russia's just not good enough, they can't make this kind of a move. If they simply sent troops, even if they weren't that well trained, and by all accounts, many of them are, but just the fact of all that number of troops going to your capital where you presently don't have enough troops to defend, you don't have a strategic reserve. They don't have 150, 200,000 Ukrainians to defend somewhere else. I mean, they would also certainly pull any of these back here, anything that's not in combat. They would throw everything they have, but they would have to pull because some of their most capable combat forces are currently along the line of contact, of course. I mean, why wouldn't they be? But you see, they just don't have enough forces to do everything. So they would have to rob Peter to pay Paul in a big way, and they simply don't have it. So if they protect their capital city here, then they're going to lose here. So I don't know for sure what Russia's going to do, but I can tell you there is a tremendous vulnerability, and it's going to remain to be seen what they end up doing. But we need to know that this is a perilous time right now for the United States foreign policy and our national security in both the Middle East and in Europe here. And man, if we had Ambassador